Have you ever heard of a country turning its back on a 100-year-old ally for a $500 billion rail deal? That's exactly what just happened. The United Kingdom, one of America's closest friends on the global stage, just shook hands with China to build a massive high-speed rail system worth $500 billion. And no, this isn't just a story about trains. This is a story about trust, power, and a major shift in global alliances. In this video, we're going to break down why the UK said no to the US and yes to China. We'll explore what this deal really means, not just for Britain, but for the entire world. We'll look at the hidden politics behind the scenes, how this deal fits into China's global game plan, why the US lost out despite its pressure, and what this might signal for the future of Western partnerships. Because let's be clear, this isn't just steel tracks and fancy trains. This is about who holds influence in tomorrow's world, and it might not be who you think. Let's begin. To understand why the UK chose China over the US, we need to rewind and look at the bigger picture. For decades, the UK and the US have been like two best friends on the world stage. They've stood side by side in wars, shared top intelligence through the Five Eyes Alliance, and cooperated closely in organizations like NATO. When it came to major decisions, military, economic, or diplomatic, the UK almost always sided with America. But in recent years, cracks have started to show. Especially after Brexit, the UK found itself more alone, no longer part of the EU's powerful trading bloc. It needed new partners, fast. At the same time, the UK's railway system has been falling behind. Outdated trains, aging tracks, and constant delays have frustrated commuters for years. Public pressure grew for a modern, green, and high-speed solution. But here's the catch. The UK didn't have the technology or expertise to build that kind of system on its own. So, the UK turned to the global market for help. It needed a partner who could bring advanced rail technology, build fast, and not break the bank. That's when the US entered the race. American companies tried to win the deal, lobbyists made calls, and diplomats pushed hard. Washington reminded the UK of their special relationship. But behind all the smiles and handshakes, the US offerings were less than impressive. American firms lacked real experience with bullet trains, and their proposals came with higher costs and longer timelines. The UK had to make a decision, stick with tradition or go with results. Enter China. When China stepped into the picture, the offer looked almost too good to ignore. First, China is no stranger to building world-class railways. Through its massive Belt and Road Initiative, a global infrastructure push, China has laid thousands of kilometers of railway across Asia, Africa, and parts of Europe. They've helped countries modernize their transport networks quickly and affordably, earning a reputation for speed and efficiency. So what did they put on the table for the UK? They offered to build a high-speed rail system faster than any Western company could manage. We're talking about timelines that seemed almost impossible, unless you've seen what China did at home. In just over a decade, China built over 40,000 kilometers of high-speed rail. That's more than the rest of the world combined. And not only did they build fast, they also brought costs down. Chinese rail tech is mass-produced and battle-tested, meaning it's both affordable and reliable. China also sweetened the deal by saying the project could be included in its Belt and Road Initiative. That meant the UK wouldn't just get a railway, it would get access to China's growing trade network, linking it to Europe, Central Asia, and even Africa through freight and transport corridors. On the other hand, the US proposal just didn't measure up. American companies haven't built high-speed rail systems on that scale. Most US rail projects suffer from cost overruns, delays, and political gridlock. The US proposal to the UK was seen as expensive, slow, and uncertain. In contrast, China's offer looked clean, quick, and strategic. And quietly, behind the scenes, Beijing made it clear. This deal wasn't just about trains. It was about forming a deeper economic partnership. It was about influence, power, and rewriting the rules of who gets to lead on global infrastructure. The UK listened and leaned east. Now let's go deeper. Why would the UK take such a big risk and choose China over its traditional ally, the US? It all comes down to strategy. After Brexit, the UK found itself standing alone. No longer part of the EU trade bloc, it had to find new economic partners. The government was under pressure to show the world that Britain could still strike big deals and remain a global player. This rail project became more than just a transportation upgrade. It became a symbol of the UK's future direction. And that future? It needed diversity. Relying too much on the US or Europe was starting to look risky. By working with China, the UK could show that it was open to all global powers, East and West. It was a move toward a multipolar strategy, not picking sides, but choosing what works best. There was also the money. China didn't just offer a cheaper project, they offered better financing terms. Long repayment periods, low interest, and even promises of local job creation in the UK. It wasn't just a handout, it was a partnership. This gave Britain more economic breathing room, especially as it dealt with rising costs and inflation at home. And there was the green angle, too. The UK has been pushing hard to cut emissions and switch to clean energy. China's rail tech fit that vision perfectly. High-speed electric trains that could reduce reliance on air travel and cut carbon footprints across the country. So, when you added it all up, post-Brexit pressure, the need for new allies, economic practicality, and environmental goals, China's offer ticked every box. From the UK's point of view, this wasn't about betrayal. It was about survival. It was about growth. It was about the future. But not everyone was cheering. The moment the UK announced it was awarding the $500 billion rail contract to China, backlash erupted, from both across the Atlantic and within its own borders. In Washington, US officials were furious. For decades, the US and UK have been close allies, sharing intelligence through the Five Eyes Alliance, fighting wars side by side, and often voting together on the world stage. So when the UK chose China, it felt like a betrayal. Some US lawmakers called it a strategic mistake, while others warned that the UK was inviting the fox into the henhouse. Their biggest concern? That China would gain control, or at least heavy influence, over key British infrastructure. It brought back memories of the Huawei controversy, where the UK initially allowed the Chinese tech giant to help build its 5G network, only to later reverse the decision under US pressure. And inside the UK, the reaction wasn't exactly calm either. British media exploded with headlines questioning the decision. Opposition parties accused the government of selling out. Some politicians worried that sensitive data about passenger movement scheduling or even rail operations could fall into Chinese hands. Was this just a rail deal? Or was it a digital backdoor? Still, not everyone was against it. Many people in the UK, especially in cities with poor rail service, were excited about the project. They wanted faster, cleaner trains and didn't care where the help came from, as long as it arrived. For them, this was about getting to work on time, not geopolitics. So, the country found itself divided, a modern high-tech future on one side, and deep security and trust concerns on the other, and the tension, it's still growing. This decision by the UK wasn't just about trains. It was a signal to the world, a clear message that the balance of global power is shifting. For decades, the US has been seen as the world's dominant force, especially among Western allies. But this rail deal shows that even longtime partners like the UK are now willing to break tradition and look east for opportunities. Some experts say this is the UK's first major move toward a multipolar world, one where power is no longer centered around Washington, but shared among several big players, including China. And China, it's not just building trains, it's building influence. By helping countries build infrastructure, China is expanding its soft power. Unlike military power, soft power works by attraction, offering help, building trust, and creating long-term partnerships. And it's working. China has already built high-speed railways in countries like Indonesia, Laos, and Serbia. Now, with the UK on board, China's reach is extending even further into Western territory. This deal also sent a strong message to NATO and EU allies. If the UK, one of the most US-aligned nations in the world, can work with China, maybe others will follow. Countries like Italy and Greece, already part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, might now feel validated, and others could be watching closely. For the US, this is a wake-up call. If America wants to win future infrastructure deals, it needs to rethink how it competes. China offers lower costs, faster delivery, and more financing options. U.S. companies, by comparison, are often slower and more expensive. And in a world where countries are desperate for better transport, speed and price matter more than politics. Finally, for the UK-China relationship, this could be the start of something big, or the start of new tensions. If the project succeeds, China may offer more deals. But if concerns around data, influence, or quality arise, the backlash could return just as fast. This one rail deal could reshape not just the UK's economy, but the world's political map. So, was this the right move for the UK? On one hand, yes, the country is getting a modern rail system faster and cheaper than if it had gone with traditional Western options. This could bring real economic benefits, jobs, trade access, better connectivity across cities, and a greener transport system aligned with climate goals. For a post-Brexit Britain looking for new global partners, it's a bold step. But on the other hand, it's a risky gamble. Choosing China over the United States might bring economic gains today, but could strain political ties tomorrow. The United States is still a key defense and intelligence partner, and no rail deal can easily replace that. There's also public concern about relying on China for strategic infrastructure, especially after past controversies like Huawei. This deal also shines a light on a bigger issue. Can the United States still compete in the global marketplace? If it wants to win future mega deals like this, Washington and its companies may need to become more agile, more competitive, and more attuned to what countries actually need: fast, affordable, reliable infrastructure. And what about other Western nations? Will they follow the UK's lead and start working with China too? That's the question. As global power continues to shift, we may see more of these unthinkable alliances, where economic need outweighs political loyalty. In the end, this wasn't just a rail deal, it was a message that the world is changing, and fast. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more insights into the new global power game.